Hey guys, Kuroda, Rob here. First of all, I apologize for this atrocious lighting, by the way. I gotta get a better lighting setup. But that aside, I want to give a update today about a brief history of Castlevania Part 2. A lot of you guys who subscribe to my channel subscribed because you wanted to watch Part 2. I announced that there was going to be a Part 2 at the end of A Brief History of Castlevania Part 1. And that video was published basically last fall. I think it was November, so it's been months. I apologize for the very, very long wait for all of you guys who subscribed and saw that video and wanted to see the sequel. I am very, very happy to report that it is coming very soon now. As I mentioned in the community tab, I'll just give a full update about what's been going on. The script itself took a long time because, number one, there was a bit of a gap between when I was working on it and then resumed working on it and finished it. But the script, by far, is probably the longest and most time-consuming aspect of making a video like this for me. So it took a while for me to actually do the script because, to be quite frank with all of you guys, there's the vast majority of these games that are on this part 2 I am not very familiar with. I'm more of as far as my exposure to Castlevania, it's like Symphony of the Night and before. And I played a few other ones after that. But as far as Castlevania games of the 2000s on, I really didn't grow up with the series, so I wasn't exposed to a lot of these, unfortunately. So it really did require a lot of research and time to just make sure the script was good, make sure my facts were straight and everything. I'm sure I probably got a few things wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if I did, but I think I did a pretty thorough job and I did a decent job in the research part of this video. But I really did want to do like a comprehensive Castlevania retrospective, which is basically what this whole project has been about. So the script finally was finished, I'd say a few weeks ago, I want to say. I'd have to look at the community post. I'll put it right here or something, where I'll screenshot it or something. But I finally finished the script recently, and then I actually, very sadly, recorded the entire voiceover, and because the audio quality of it was so bad, I ended up having to re-record the whole thing, which was quite a pain. And so I did that, and I edited the voiceover, which took quite a bit of time too. And now finally I'm in the actual video editing stage of this video, and I want to say a couple things. First of all, this video is going to be a lot longer than the first video. I think it's roughly about 10 minutes longer than the other video because there are so many Castlevania games. I don't think even I realized when I got into this. I knew there were a lot of Castlevania games, but I didn't realize just how many Castlevania games there are. So I think I did a pretty good job at covering the entire rest of the main series of games. We've got all the Game Boy Advance titles, all 3 of them. We have the 3 DS titles. We have the 3 Lord of Shadows games. We have the 2 N64 games. We, of course, have Symphony of the Night. We have a bunch of other ones that I haven't mentioned. So I think I was thorough and did a pretty good job at covering everything. There's a couple spin-off titles that I didn't really talk about, a few of them, which maybe I'll get into. I've even thought of doing like a complete history of Castlevania where I cover even the spin-offs and stuff like that. But there's a couple little things that I think diehard fans will probably say is missing from the video. But overall, as far as the main Castlevania games, they're all there. And I think I spend enough time on each where I go over them properly. So that being said, it's a longer video. Script took a lot longer. The voiceover was way more difficult because of, like I said, just issues with the recording and having to re-record it and everything. And by consequence, the video is taking longer. Now, I will say, though, in regards to the video in terms of me putting it together has actually gone very smoothly so far, knock on wood. It's gone very well. I'm making very good progress very fast. I'm just going to be completely transparent and let you know where I am. The video is about 28 minutes long. I've got about 6 minutes or so edited as of right now. I just spent a whole bunch of time today editing it. I've been trying to spend as much time as I can especially now with the state of the world right now. I have more time, so I'm just trying to pour as much time as I can into the Castlevania video on top of all the other things that I do. But the Castlevania video has been my main project, and I'm just happy to announce to you guys that it's going to be out soon. It's pretty much going to be out when I'm done with it. I'm not giving an exact time. I give you a time frame, probably within the next week or two, I would say. Possibly a little longer than that, but I don't think it's going to be much longer than that, depending on how much I can actually work on the thing. But if all goes well, I should have this thing up in hopefully a couple weeks, the longest. So I hope that you guys will stick with me and be a little bit more patient with me and just wait just a little bit longer. I know it's been quite a few months, but we are down to the wire now. I'm getting everything done. I'm getting everything edited. It's looking really good. I'm really pleased with what I've got so far, and it's coming very, very soon. So again, I just really appreciate everybody that's been sticking with me, who is still going to watch the video, and I hope it does as well as the first one. That being said, when I finish this second video, I'm not quite done with the Brief History of Castlevania video. I am going to do, like I said, a complete history of Castlevania, which is basically going to be a version of both videos where I compile both videos into one huge video. And what I plan to do with that, just to kind of change it up a little bit, is there's one or two mistakes I made in the first Castlevania video, which a lot of you pointed out to me, which I am actually very grateful for. Thank you. I made one issue I know I had was I said that people consider the Bram Stoker novel as part of the canon of the series, which it's not. That's not true. It actually is canon to the series, because I didn't realize that Bloodlines is actually in the actual timeline, the official timeline for Castlevania. So that being said, I've got to fix that, and there's a couple other little things that I can't think of right now that I have to do on that one. Now, what I want to do as well with this video, when Brief History of Castlevania 2 drops, I want feedback. I want you guys to tell me if I got any kind of any of the information wrong, like if any of my research was wrong or I missaid something or whatever. And what I plan on doing is basically putting those two videos together, editing the little things that I might have messed up based on feedback from you guys. And then I'm going to do one big video, which will probably be roughly 40 minutes long or so, of the entire series, which will be everything together. So those of you who want to just watch it in succession can. So I'm hoping to do that. And the only other thing I might add to a complete history of Castlevania is what I was mentioning before. I'll just say I barely, I mentioned a little bit in this video Kid Dracula, but I didn't talk about it really very much at all. I didn't talk about the slot machines. I mean, I don't think there's a ton to say there, but there's some slot machines there. There's some early mobile games I didn't really talk about. I didn't really talk about Captain N, how Simon Belmont was a character in Captain N. And there's a few other little things, like cameos and stuff, that I haven't talked about. I may try to compile those as well and do that as like a nice little extra thing that I could put in the complete history of Castlevania. But that's not going to be for quite a while. I mean, quite a long while, I think. At least until I get feedback from from part 2. So anyway, that being said, that's my ramble. That's my my update on the Brief History of Castlevania Part 2. Coming very soon now. It'll be here before you know it. Like I said, a couple weeks. But I can't leave you guys hanging here. You guys must be wanting something. So for those of you whose mouths are watering and you want some of this video, here is a quick little preview of just a little section of it that I've gotten done so far. Thank you, and peace. Enjoy. On the Nintendo 64, the Castlevania series would see its first full 3D game, Castlevania, or Castlevania 64 as it was later dubbed by fans in the media. Released in 1999, Castlevania would be the first game in the series to implement full 3D movement, a targeting system, and different camera controls. Additionally, a day and night cycle was added, similar to that of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask a year later. Depending on the time of day, certain events would be triggered, such as different areas being accessible, as well as certain characters appearing. Although many of these new features were implemented, the gameplay would center around core elements of previous titles, with an emphasis on exploration and platforming. Unlike Symphony of the Night, however, the game would be fairly linear, with players unable to return to previous levels once completed. Castlevania has two playable characters, Reinhard Schneider and Carrie Fernandez, who set out to Dracula's castle after the people of Transylvania start to descend into wickedness. Sensing the Count's imminent return, they alone must face him. Depending on which protagonist the player chooses at the beginning of the game, different levels can be accessed. Although initial reviews were positive, with praise for its graphics, music, and atmosphere, the game received a lot of criticism for its clunky controls and camera. Castlevania: Legacy of Darkness would release later that year for the Nintendo 64, serving as both a prequel and enhanced version of the previous title. Legacy of Darkness includes additional levels, gameplay modes, and characters that were originally intended to be included in the first Nintendo 64 title. The game stars Cornell, a man-beast who is trying to save his sister, Ada, from being sacrificed to Dracula. After Cornell encounters an estate owned by the Oldry family, he, by their request, saves their son Henry, who later embarks on his own quest to save some kidnapped children. The game primarily features these two quests, with the addition of both Carrie Fernandez and Reinhard Schneider's quests from the first game, which can be unlocked after completing the initial two campaigns. Like the first game, the gameplay largely emphasizes platforming and also incorporates some survival horror elements. The game received mixed reviews, and both Castlevania 64 and Legacy of Darkness have since been removed from the official timeline.